So one of the things about extreme ownership is that it applies not just to business, but to life. And so, you know, we're working with an individual who told us that extreme ownership saved his marriage. And I said, really, how is that? Can you explain that? And he said, well, look, I was blaming everything on her and putting it all on her, and extreme ownership made me look in the mirror and say, what can I do differently? How can I, what can I change that will change the outcome here? And so that totally turned things around for him and his wife. And I think that's just one small example of how, if you look inwardly at yourself about what you can fix, instead of worrying about everybody else and blaming things on other people and making excuses, then you can really change a whole lot in your life, as well as in your business, as well as anything in your world.
When we were overseas, when we were in combat, that attitude of extreme ownership had completely spread throughout our entire task unit. And, I wasn't out there on the front lines leading people, telling them what to do and where to go. They were taking that initiative themselves. And that shows you the power. I mean, I wasn't micromanaging Leif or the other platoon commander or the subordinate leadership inside of our unit. I was hands off and making sure that they had the support they needed and making sure that they could continue to execute the mission at the highest level. And I didn't really have to worry about how they were going to get it done. I just knew that they were going to get it done. And from a leadership perspective, that allowed me to look at the strategic picture. It allowed me to deconflict other operations that were happening, and it allowed me to look up and out instead of constantly looking down. And I think that was had a huge impact on the results that we were able to accomplish during our deployment to Iraq. I'll get asked from time to time, when is it appropriate to fire somebody? When is someone considered untrainable? And, my response to that is usually it's pretty obvious when it's time to fire somebody. And my personal check on how I know that it's time for them to be fired is that I do not have any guilt about it. Now, I'm not saying, I don't feel bad that you might be affecting someone's career. Certainly in the SEAL teams, if you fired somebody, it was horrible for their career. But at the same time, if you didn't feel any guilt about it, that means that you had done your job as a leader to mentor them, to help them, to coach them, to try and get them up to speed. And if you've done all that and they can't get themselves to the level that they need to be, and they're gonna negatively impact the team, then it's pretty obvious what needs to happen. And that is that they need to be fired. And simple as that. The book has a bunch of different principles, and sometimes I'll be asked, which one is the most important one? And I have a pretty canned response for that. For me, one of the most important characteristics of a leader is being able to balance all these different opposing pressures and forces that are on you. And if you go too far in one direction or the other, you become off balance as a leader, and your decision-making process can become off balance, and you'll end up making mistakes. None of the principles in this book are mutually exclusive. And there'd be no reason to say, hey, use this principle, but not this one. They're interconnected, they're mutually supporting, you use them together, and that's how you end up with the best leadership decision-making process. In combat, the enemy gets a vote, meaning regardless of what your plan is, the enemy could do something that's going to disrupt that plan. And the same thing happens in the business world. Whether it's market conditions, whether it's competition and the maneuvers that they make, there's going to be factors that disrupt your plan, and you have to be ready to adapt to them. The enemy gets a vote. So, decentralized command is critical for any team.
in any organization. And so a unit that exercises decentralized command in a military, proper decentralized command, which means that rather than just have total chaos, which you've got junior leaders running around doing their own thing, decentralized command means that each team within the team has very specific guidance and what we call right and left limits of responsibilities. They understand, what the strategic goals they're trying to accomplish, and they can maneuver and make decisions in order to further those strategic goals. So that's really what proper decentralized command is. And so the advantage over a competitor is that folks that don't do that are very centralized, it takes longer to make decisions. It has to go up through a big bureaucratic chain. If one person, is making the decision at the very top, and so it's a huge advantage because the folks on the front lines in decentralized command can actually react to a current situation as market conditions change, as different technology comes online. They can actually solve problems and make things happen that the senior leaders may have not even thought about, and they can actually go out and accomplish those strategic goals.
In combat, as the overall leader, I had to absolutely push down authority levels to my subordinate leadership so that when they were in the front lines in a firefight, they could make decisions and execute without guidance from me because they already understood the underlying plan. The same thing has to happen in business. Those frontline troops cannot be micromanaged from 4 or 5 bureaucratic layers up. They need to have the power to execute, the knowledge to understand the strategic vision, and the parameters from which they can operate.
Our mission in writing this book was to provide lessons learned for leaders and teams to help them build more effective, high-performance winning teams that can go out and dominate on their battlefields.
Writing this book was an opportunity for us to take those lessons learned from combat and capture them in a pretty concise format so that they can be passed on to other leaders in every industry so that they can take those lessons, apply them to their world, lead, and win.